Hello, welcome back. Okay, so in our last video we found the 5-number summary of data, and now we're going to talk about box and whiskers. And it is not this kind of whiskers. No, not those kind. Okay, so here's a picture of my computer screen, and yes, I did take a picture of my computer screen with my iPad because that's how I roll. Yeah, and so this was our 5-number summary that we found. So we decided that the 5-number summary is this, or well, we didn't decide, I just told you. So the first number in your 5-number summary is your minimum, that's here. The last one is your maximum, so that's here. And then we have these quartiles. So this is basically, it represents quarters, right? Quarters of the data. So this is the first quarter of my data. So this is Q1. This represents the third quarter, so 75% of my data. And then we have the mean, which is just the average. And notice that the mean is not necessarily right in the middle. It's not like Q2. So this is not mean. Okay. You would think that that's what that was, but that wouldn't actually give us the data that we want if we use that. So what we're going to use is we're going to use this 5-number summary, and we're going to draw a box and whisker plot. And I'm sure you've seen these. You may have even used them. They look like this. So you're going to put it on a number line. So this whole thing is a number line. So 0. And we're going to put our number. We're going to use those 5-number summaries, and we're going to draw this box and whisker plot. So the way this works is our minimum is down here. This first line is our first quartile. This is our mean. This is our third quartile. And this is our max. I'm not labeling them that way for a specific reason. It's just because I didn't have room to put them all in a row. But that's where these things go. So we're going to use our data, and we're going to put it on a number line like that. So the first thing we need is a number line. Da-da-da, hooray, number line. Okay, mine goes from 5 to 90. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a little number line from 0 to 100 because I need my data to fit on there. So this is 0, this is 100. So then that would make this middle point like 50 here. I might have 10, 20, 30, 40. You want these evenly spaced. I'm just drawing these by hand, so it's not entirely evenly spaced. Unfortunately, Excel won't do these for us, and neither will Google Sheets, so that's why we're doing it by hand. I think there are programs online that you can find to do this, and there are ways to trick one of them. I forget which one. I think it was Google Sheets. Into doing something a tiny bit similar, but it was vertical and it's weird. It's just easier to do it by hand. Okay, so our data. Da-da-da. Okay, so our minimum was 5, so that's right here. I'm going to make that a line so it's at least neat. Okay, that was our first. That's our minimum. Our next line that we need is our Q1, which was at 9. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger because it's going to connect up and be a box. So that's here. My next one is my mean, which was at 23. So that's going to be here. The next one is 24, which is right beside it. So that's here. And then, okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And my next one is at 90, which is way out here. I'm going to move this over because I didn't put it in the right spot. There we go. Okay, now I need to connect them up. So I'm going to connect here and here. Let's see. Da-da-da. Hooray, technology. Okay, now I'm going to connect them up. Or not. Let's just draw that. Okay, and then I'm going to color my whiskers. They extend way out here. So this is kind of a funny looking box and whisker plot, right? This one over here, this first one that I drew, was evenly spaced. It had the box right in the middle. The mean was right in the middle. Everything's all nice and neat. The one I just drew is not, right? It's like this. It's way off to one side. That's a good thing. This is why box and whisker plots are handy, because this tells us what's going on with our data. In this case, what it's telling us is that everything's not neatly distributed. So let's say, as an example, let's say you're a basketball coach. So this is one of the examples that we had on a worksheet a long time ago, many moons ago. Okay, so you have a bunch of basketball players, and you're looking at how good they are. And you notice that on average, they get like, maybe they get 5 points in a game. Let's say the lowest one, so let's say your minimum, let me just write our 5-number summary. Let's say the lowest point that anybody got in the game was 0, because they're not very good. First quartile, let's say, was 2. The mean was 5. Third quartile, let's say, was 8. And then let's say you have the maximum was 23. So what this tells us is that by 8 points, this already represents 75% of the data, because that's my third quartile, right? So that means most of my players aren't doing very well. What it also means, and I don't have the numbers listed out, but it means like there are only just a very few players that are making more points than 8 per game, and we have one player probably who's making 23 points per game. So what this tells me then as a coach is, okay, wait a second, I've got this 1 or 2 or 3 people and they're doing great, but everybody else needs quite a bit of work. So maybe I should bring in some kind of a specialty coach on making shots, right? Or let's say you're a boss and you have a sales team. And let's say your stuff is way up here. So this means, so you've got, let's say you're selling cars per month. And let's say your minimum was 1. Your first quartile is 15. Your average is 18. Third quartile is 20. And your max is 22. So what this tells me is now this data is all bunched up over on the right side. So that means that the vast majority of people are doing really well, but we've got this 1 or 2 over here, so few, or 1, not selling very many cars. So rather than hire some kind of a sales coach to come in and train everybody, since most of my people are doing really well, then I would only need to concentrate on the 1 or 2 that aren't doing very well, right? So I can save money that way. Or if I'm looking to downsize, like say my expenses are too high and I need to get rid of some people, then if I look at this, the vast majority of my people are doing really well, but I've got these 2 people over here that aren't doing really well. So I've got Jane and John. And Jane and John suck at selling cars. Everybody else is doing great. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, you know what? Jane and John aren't doing very well. They're not bringing in very much money. I'm going to fire them. Da-da-da, laid off. So you can use these box and whisker plots to make decisions for your business based on what's happening. So if we look at this just as a recap, so we have our 5-number summary. We have our minimum value. We have our first quartile. We have our mean. We have our third quartile, and we have our max. And if I plot that on a box and whisker chart, I do my number line. I make sure I space it so that all my points can fit on there. I have my min. I'll put it down this way this time. Okay, draw my little whiskers. This point right here is my minimum. This is my first quartile. This is my mean. This is my third quartile, so 75%, third quarter, and this is my max. So I use that 5-number summary that I got, which I calculated all of those using Excel or Sheets. I mean, you can do it by hand if you want, but you don't have to. I take that and I put it on a number line and I turn it into a box and whisker plot, and now I can make decisions based on this. So that is box and whisker plots.